Imagine this. You're alone, for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, nothing but frozen wilderness. Polar night. The temperature is minus 45 degrees Celsius. If you take off your glove, your fingers will turn black and die in less than 2 minutes. But the cold isn't the worst part. The worst part is watching you right now from the darkness. You hear them, you smell them, that sharp, heavy stench of wet fur and wild animal. They've surrounded your fragile shelter. 10, maybe 12 polar wolves, each one weighing close to 80 kilograms. Perfect killing machines. They're hungry. They know you're here. And between your throat and their fangs, there's only a thin wall of reindeer hide. Any modern person in this situation would lose their mind in fear. They'd run. They'd start shooting into the dark, and they would die. But you're a Chukchi reindeer herder, and you're about to do something insane. Something that makes no sense at all. You're going to fall asleep. Right here, in the center of a pack that's craving your blood. How is that physically possible? Why don't they attack? What's the secret behind this impossible sleep that has saved people in the tundra for thousands of years? Tonight, you will live through this night. From the first howl to the gray dawn. You'll learn how to build a snow fortress that predators fear. How to show no fear, even when your heart feels like it's about to explode out of your chest. And what ancient pact allows humans and wolves to share the same land without killing each other? This isn't just a survival story. This is a journey into a world where completely different rules apply. Get ready. It's going to be a long night. Friends, a small request. Support the channel with a like and a subscription. Thank you. Let's begin. Nylték would remember this night for the rest of his life. He was 19 years old, and this was his first solo watch in what locals called the death zone. He sat inside his yaranga, gripping his spear so tightly his knuckles turned white. He could hear them. They weren't howling somewhere far away anymore. They were here. He heard their paws crunching over the frozen snow, right behind the thin wall of reindeer hides. He heard their heavy, wet breathing. The circle had closed. They knew he was here. They could feel his fear, and they were ready to wait. But to understand how he ended up in this trap, we need to rewind 6 hours. Back to the moment when the sun touched the horizon for the last time, and Nylték made his very first mistake. 6 hours earlier, everything was different. The tundra felt almost peaceful. The sun hadn't risen above the horizon for over a month. It gave off a faint bluish glow, polar twilight. This is what they call daytime here. The temperature was only minus 35, and there was almost no wind. Perfect conditions for moving the herd. Nylték walked at the front. 427 reindeer, the entire wealth of his family. His father had herded these reindeer, his grandfather before him. Now it was his turn. This was his initiation, his exam, his right to be called a man. There are no stores in the tundra, no salaries. Your only treasure, your only currency, is the reindeer. A reindeer is food. Dried meat you'll chew through the long winter. A reindeer is a home. The hides that make up your yaranga. A reindeer is clothing. Your double-layer fur parka, without it, you'll freeze to death in 10 minutes. To lose the herd means to lose everything. It means starvation for your family. Your younger brothers and sisters won't survive the winter. Your father won't be able to look people in the eye from shame. You're not just guarding animals. You're guarding the future of your bloodline. Nylték knew this, and he knew something else. There is another master of the tundra, one who also wants to live, the polar wolf. This isn't the fairy tale wolf you've seen in stories. This is a perfect killing machine, forged by thousands of years of evolution in the harshest place on Earth. They're larger than their southern relatives. Their fur is thicker. Their jaws are stronger. But their greatest weapon is the pack. They move as one organism with terrifying coordination and tactics. They can chase prey for days, wearing it down to complete exhaustion. They don't know mercy. They only know hunger. And on this polar night, your paths were bound to cross. This wasn't a random encounter. It was an eternal war for resources, for meat. You and the wolf, the two apex predators of the tundra, two direct competitors. Nylték instinctively reached for the amulet under his clothes, a wolf's fang, old, yellowed with age. His father had placed it around his neck before sending him on this first solo watch. "This fang belonged to the wolf that almost killed your grandfather," his father said, his voice hard as frozen ground. "Your grandfather won that fight, but the scar on his shoulder stayed with him for life. Wear this fang, and remember, you and the wolf share the same blood. You're both hunters. You both want to survive. Respect his strength, but never, ever show him your back." And the most important rule his father drilled into his head: in the tundra, there's only one rule. The one who doesn't sleep stays alive. Nylték looked at the herd. The reindeer were calmly pawing through the snow, digging for lichen. They had no idea what was coming. He patted his dog on the neck. Tongue, a massive shaggy beast, a mix of Lyca and wolf. Tongue was calm. That meant the area was still clean, but the twilight was thickening. The blue light faded into inky darkness. The temperature began to drop fast. It was time to set up camp. And this is where the real fight for survival began. Because in the tundra, the place where you choose to sleep can become your grave. Choosing a spot is the first and most important decision. There are no trees in the tundra, no rocks, nothing to hide behind. You're standing on an open palm, visible to anything that has eyes. The only shelter you have is the one you build yourself. Nylték found a shallow depression, a hollow carved by the wind into the snow. Not perfect, but better than nothing. The walls of the hollow would offer at least some protection from the cutting wind, which was already starting to rise, a warning of an incoming storm. He worked fast, with movement sharpened by years of practice. But today, every motion was soaked in fear. He could feel time slipping through his fingers. He could feel the cold crawling under his clothes. And he could feel the darkness closing in around him, hiding whatever might already be watching. First, the frame. 12 long, lightweight larch poles. He drove them into the snow in a circle, about 4 meters across. The snow was hard as stone, compressed by endless winds. Every strike of the axe sent pain shooting through his shoulder, but he didn't stop. He tied the tops of the poles together with strong reindeer hide straps, forming a cone. This was the skeleton of his fortress. Then, the first line of defense, the inner layer. He stretched reindeer hides over the frame, old, smoke-darkened, but still tough. Fur facing inward, skin facing outward. This wasn't just a tent. It was survival technology, perfected over thousands of years. The fur on the inside trapped a layer of air, holding in warmth. The hide on the outside blocked wind and snow. But that still wasn't enough. At -45 degrees, a single layer of hide won't save you. You need insulation. And the best insulator in the tundra is snow. Nylték grabbed a wooden shovel and began throwing snow onto the walls of the Uranga. He worked like a man possessed, shovel after shovel, until the entire structure was buried under a layer nearly half a meter thick. The snow filled every crack, every gap, turning the Uranga into a solid frozen dome. Air trapped between snow crystals is a perfect barrier against the cold. And finally, the third layer, the outer armor. He stretched another layer of hides over the snow, this time fur facing outward. This layer protected the snow from being stripped away by the wind and added camouflage. The Uranga now looked like a natural snowdrift, blending into the white silence of the tundra. Inside this snow fortress, the temperature would be 30, sometimes even 40 degrees warmer than outside. Even without fire, that difference meant life or death. Nylték finished the work, gasping for breath. Sweat poured down his face, instantly freezing into a crust of ice. He knew how dangerous that was. Sweating in this cold means you freeze the moment you stop. But he couldn't stop. One last thing remained, the most important one. He pulled a sack from the sled, something he always carried with him. Bones rattled inside. Old reindeer antlers, skulls, thigh bones. This was his alarm system, his early warning device. He began laying the bones around the Urunga, forming a wide circle about 30 meters across. He placed them so they were barely visible in the snow, but impossible to step around. Anyone who tried to approach the shelter would step on them. The crunch of dry bone in extreme cold is a sound that wakes a Chukchi from even the deepest sleep. It's a sound that means one thing: they're here. He worked methodically, forcing himself not to think about what lay beyond that circle, where the darkness was already hiding watchers. He could feel their eyes on his back, feel them judging him, his work, his fear. His dog tongue was growing more and more uneasy. The dog kept stopping, lifting his muzzle into the wind, sniffing, then letting out a low, guttural growl. The fur along his neck stood on end. "Easy, Tongue, easy," Nylték whispered, even though his own voice was shaking. "We'll get through this. We have to." He finished laying out the bones. The fortress was ready. He had done everything he could. Now there was nothing left but to wait. He took one last look at what he had built. A small mound of snow in the middle of an endless frozen wasteland. So fragile, so unreliable, and so absolutely vital. He called Tongue, and together they slipped into the narrow entrance of the Urunga, pulling the heavy hide curtain shut behind them. Inside, it was dark and quiet. The outside world, with its wind and deadly cold, was left beyond the walls. But Nylték knew it was only an illusion of safety. The walls of his fortress were thick, but they couldn't protect him from what was already following his trail. He sat down on the hides, leaning his back against the cold wall. His heart was pounding in his chest like a trapped bird. He laid the spear across his knees, gripping it with both hands. He knew this night would feel endless, and he knew he had no right to close his eyes. Because his father's words echoed in his head: "The one who doesn't sleep lives, and the one who falls asleep may never wake up again." Inside the Urunga, it was a different world, a world he had built with his own hands in the last hour. Outside, -45 and a wind strong enough to knock you down and freeze the soul out of your body. Inside, already -20, and the temperature was still rising. For a man who had spent his entire life in the tundra, this felt almost tropical. Nylték felt the warmth begin to seep through his layered clothing. It was a painful, prickling warmth. His fingers, which just minutes ago couldn't feel the handle of the axe, began to thaw, and it hurt. Blood rushed back into them with a pulsing, burning pain, like thousands of needles stabbing under his nails. He rubbed his hands, wincing. But it was a good pain, the pain of being alive. He took off his outer kuchlianka, heavy, frozen stiff. Underneath was the second one, lighter, made from the hide of a young reindeer, fur facing inward. He didn't undress completely, never. In the tundra, you always have to be ready to rush outside in a second. To undress is to die. His body demanded energy. He had burned thousands of calories building this fortress. Now his body was burning through its reserves at a terrifying speed just to stay warm. He needed fuel. Nylték reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of reindeer meat. Not the kind you're used to seeing in a store. This was a solid frozen slab of muscle, dark red, almost black. He wasn't going to cook it. There was no time, and not enough firewood. In the tundra, fuel is a luxury. He took his knife, razor sharp, with a handle carved from reindeer antler, and began shaving the meat into thin curls. The shavings twisted as they fell, pinkish, streaked with white fat. He put them into his mouth, handful after handful. The meat was ice cold. It burned his tongue and palate with cold, stuck to the inside of his mouth. It was hard to chew, crunching between his teeth like ice. But as it melted, the taste emerged. The taste of raw, wild meat. The taste of blood, the taste of life. This wasn't a delicacy, It was pure, concentrated energy. Along with the meat, he eats fat, reindeer fat, stored in a special bladder. He bites off chunks of the hard, white fat and chews them like gum. When it's this cold, the fat has almost no taste. But Nylték knows this is the most valuable thing he owns. Fat is heat. It's what will burn inside his internal furnace all night long, keeping him alive even after the fire dies out. 9 calories per gram, pure survival. He feels the fat drop heavily into his stomach, and a few minutes later, a deep, satisfying warmth begins to spread from there. His body accepts the offering with gratitude. The shivering that shook him after the work slowly fades. Then, tea. This isn't just a drink, it's a ritual, a connection to civilization, to home, to safety. He packs a small smoke-blackened kettle with snow and places it over the fire. The snow melts slowly, hissing and spitting as drops of water hit the coals. Nylték waits patiently, adding snow handful by handful until the kettle fills with water. When it finally boils, he drops in a pinch of brick tea, black, strong, bitter. He traded for it from Russian merchants back in the fall, exchanging Arctic fox pelts. The tea smells of smoke, of roads, of something distant and unfamiliar. He pours the tea into a wooden cup. It burns his hands, but Nylték grips it tightly, soaking up the warmth through his palms. He takes the first sip. The hot liquid burns his throat, carving a trail of fire down into his stomach. It's bliss, a moment of pure physical happiness. He closes his eyes, savoring the feeling. For a second, it feels like he's home, inside the large family Yaranga. His mother is nearby, sewing a new kuchlianka, quietly humming. His father sits smoking his pipe, telling stories. His younger brothers wrestle with puppies in the corner. It's an illusion of safety, a dangerous illusion. At that moment, cutting through the howl of the wind outside, another sound emerges. Not a howl, a growl, low, vibrating, very close, right behind the wall of the Yaranga. Nylték's dog, Tongue, jumps up instantly. The fur on his neck stands straight up as he answers with a deep, threatening growl. Nylték opens his eyes. The illusion shatters. He's not home. He's alone, inside a snow burrow, in the middle of an icy wasteland. And just beyond the thin wall of hides, within arm's reach, stands death. He slowly sets the cup on the ground. His hand reaches for the spear again. The heart that had just calmed down begins to pound once more, slamming against his ribs. He looks at the fire. The flames are dying. The coals glow a dull red. Soon it will be dark and cold. Nylték knows what he has to do. The final ritual before the long night. He takes the best piece of meat, the fattiest, the most precious, and throws it into the coals. The meat sizzles. The fat ignites in a bright yellow flame, filling the Yaranga with the smell of burning meat. Pegiti, mistress of fire, accept this offering, Nylték whispers. This isn't a prayer in the way we understand it. It's a contract. You give the spirits the best you have, and they give you a chance to survive the night. Warm me, protect me. Do not let the fire inside my chest go out. He watches as the meat blackens and turns to ash. The offering is made. Now everything depends on him, and on luck. He pulls the spear closer, checks the knife on his belt. Tongue sits by the entrance, eyes locked on the hide curtain, his body tight, coiled like a spring. Nylték takes a deep breath. The air inside the Yaranga is warm. It smells of smoke, sweat, wet fur, and fear. This is the smell of his life right now. He's ready as anyone can be for what's coming. Anyone who has lived in the tundra knows this. Howling isn't scary. Howling is communication. It's wolves telling each other, we're here, we're searching, we're gathering. It's like radio chatter before a battle. As long as they howl, they're still far away. As long as they howl, they haven't chosen a target yet. The real terror comes with silence. Silence means the talking is over. Silence means the target has been chosen. Silence means they've switched into hunting mode. Maximum stealth, maximum focus. Nylték sits perfectly still, turning into pure hearing. He tries to listen with his skin, just like his grandfather taught him. His body is stretched to its limit, every muscle ready to explode, even though there's nowhere to run. And in that thick, crushing silence, he begins to catch sounds beyond normal human hearing. Kirk, barely audible. Snow compressing under weight. Not a reindeer hoof, that would be sharp, clicking. This is soft, pressing. The sound of a wide, fur-covered paw. Shh. Fur brushing against frozen, crusted snow. Very close, to the right of the entrance. And then, breathing. Nylték stops breathing himself just to hear it. Heavy, wet, deep. Not fast, not panicked, like an animal that's been running. Measured, calm. The breath of a predator that is confident. The breath of a beast standing right behind the wall. Nylték stares at the hide separating him from the outside. It's old, worn thin in places, no thicker than a finger. He sees individual hairs tremble, from the wind, or from something breathing on them from the other side. He imagines what's there. A massive gray muzzle, yellow, unblinking eyes fixed on the Uranga. A wet black nose pulling in air, analyzing the smell of fear, sweat, and cooling meat leaking through the seams. A mouth full of teeth, strong enough to snap a reindeer's thigh bone like a matchstick. It's here, the alpha. It has come to inspect. Tongue, Nylték's dog, lies right by the entrance, pressed flat against the ground. His growl has become continuous, a low hum, like high-voltage power lines. The fur along his back stands straight up, forming a sharp ridge. He isn't afraid. He's ready to fight. But Nylték knows the truth. Tongue is just an alarm. Against a pack, he would last seconds. Nylték's thoughts spiral. What do? Scream? Thrust the spear through the hide. Burst outside with the axe. Every one of those choices is wrong. Every one of them leads to death. If you scream, you show fear. Wolves attack fear. If you stab with the spear, you might miss. The blade could get stuck in the hide, leaving you defenseless. And a wounded wolf is twice as dangerous. If you rush outside, you'll face the entire pack alone, in the dark, on their territory. There is only one thing you can do. Wait, and don't breathe. A story surfaces in Nylték's mind. One his grandfather used to tell when he was a child, sitting by the fire. A story that once froze young Nylték's blood, and that he always thought was just a scary tale, until tonight. One time, his grandfather would say, puffing on his pipe, "I was young, like you, and I was also caught alone in a blizzard. I set up my Uranga, but I was so exhausted that I forgot to lay out the bone circle. I fell asleep like the dead, and in the middle of the night, I woke up, not from a sound, from a feeling. The feeling that I wasn't alone. I opened my eyes. The fire was almost out, but there were enough coals to see. The entrance flap was open, and there, in the doorway, he stood, huge, white as snow, an old wolf. He was standing inside my Uranga. His head almost touched the ceiling poles. I was lying under the hides, naked, helpless. My spear was 2 steps away, but those were 2 steps to death. I froze. I didn't breathe. I looked into his eyes, and he looked into mine. His eyes were like 2 chunks of yellow ice. There was no anger in them, no hunger, only curiosity, and something else. Something as ancient as the tundra itself. He stood there, maybe for a minute, maybe for an hour. I smelled him, that sharp, musky scent of a wild animal mixed with cold. I heard his breathing, calm, steady. I saw steam rising from his nostrils, and then he simply turned around, slowly, with dignity, and walked out, pulling the flap closed behind him. The grandfather always stopped there. "Why didn't he kill you?" Young Nylték would ask. The old man would shrug. Maybe he was full. Maybe he didn't like my smell. Or maybe he just came to look at a man who was foolish enough to forget to close the door in the tundra. Now, sitting in his own Uranga, Nylték understands the story differently. The wolf didn't come to kill. The wolf came to inspect, to see who was here, to see if there was fear, to see if the man was ready. His grandfather survived because he didn't move, because he accepted the wolf's presence as a fact. He showed no weakness. The breathing behind the wall grows louder, closer. It feels like the wolf has pressed its muzzle right up against the hide. Nylték feels cold sweat running down his spine. His hands, gripping the spear, begin to tremble. He wants to scream, to jump up, to do anything, to break this unbearable silence. But he remembers his grandfather's words. He remembers the scar. He clenches his teeth until they grind. He forces himself to take a slow, very slow, breath through his nose. He doesn't move. He waits. This silence is a duel of nerves, a duel of will. And whoever breaks it first loses their life. Suddenly, the silence shatters with a sharp, violent sound. It's not a wolf, it's a reindeer. One of the animals in the nearby herd lets out a short, panicked snort, followed by the hard udar of hooves hitting frozen ground. The herd begins to move, snorting, shifting, growing restless. They've switched targets. Nylték understands immediately. The wolves have left the Yaranga. They've gone for the herd. He exhales the breath he feels like he's been holding forever. The shaking intensifies. Adrenaline crashes through his body, but it's far too early to relax. The worst part is only beginning. They've checked the herder. Now they're checking the prey. Outside in the darkness, a war is unfolding. The wolves have driven the herd. They're working together, cutting off the weak, spreading panic. Tongue races through the dark, trying to protect the reindeer, but he's one dog against a pack. It's a sound that makes any herder's heart bleed. At that moment, every instinct inside Nylték screams. Run! Grab the spear, the axe, a torch, rush outside, shout, wave your arms, defend what's yours. It's the reaction of any normal person, the reaction of prey, cornered, trying to look more dangerous than it really is. But Nylték doesn't run. He does something that looks like complete madness, something that goes against every instinct of self-preservation. He sets the spear aside. He takes the knife, but not to fight. He begins repairing an old harness. This is the Chukchi's secret weapon, a weapon that doesn't shoot, doesn't cut, doesn't stab, a weapon that lives in your head. His grandfather called it the technique of becoming ice. The wolf isn't a demon, his grandfather used to say. The wolf is a hunter. He's smart. He's calculating. And more than anything else in the world, he fears one thing: injury. For a wolf in the tundra, any serious wound is a death sentence. A broken leg, a deep cut, a lost eye. Any of that means he can't hunt. And if he can't hunt, he starves. That's why a wolf will never attack an opponent who can seriously hurt him unless there's no other choice. A wolf looks for easy prey, weak, sick, afraid. The wolf reads body language. He can see fear from kilometers away. Tense shoulders, darting eyes, jerky movements, the smell of adrenaline. All of these are signals to attack, markers of prey. If you behave like prey, his grandfather taught him, you'll be eaten. If you behave like a predator, you'll be respected. But there's a third path, the path of the owner. The owner isn't afraid. The owner doesn't rush. The owner is busy with his own affairs. He is confident in himself and in his right to be here. Nylték cuts the leather with his knife. At first, his movements are twitchy, uneven. Then they grow smoother, more precise. He forces himself to focus on fine motor skills. Thread the needle, make an even stitch, tie the knot. He knows some of the wolves are still watching the Yaranga. The alpha never abandons a potential threat completely. They hear that the human inside isn't panicking. They don't smell fresh fear. They don't hear screams. And that confuses them. In their worldview, this behavior makes no sense. A human is supposed to be afraid. A human is supposed to defend himself. So why is this two-legged creature sitting there, doing something pointless while his herd is being killed? Maybe he's not alone. Maybe he has some kind of power they don't understand. Maybe it's a trap. Uncertainty is the enemy of a predator. A wolf does not attack what it doesn't understand. The risk is too great. Nylték keeps working. He begins to hum quietly, under his breath, a slow, wordless melody, a song his mother used to sing while putting the children to sleep. It helps him not lose his mind from the sounds of slaughter outside. Inhale, exhale, stitch, another stitch. He has become ice, cold, solid, indifferent. This is psychological judo. You use the enemy's force against itself. You turn aggression into doubt. Of course, it's not a guarantee. If the wolves are starving enough, if the pack is too large, they may still take the risk. But in most cases, this display of absolute inhuman calm works better than any weapon. He hears the chaos outside reach its peak. He hears the high, piercing cry of a reindeer, full of pain and terror, and then it cuts off abruptly. They've taken their prey. Nylték freezes. The needle stops in midair. He's lost one reindeer, but he's won his life. For now. Outside, the wolves are tearing apart a reindeer Nylték had raised since birth. A reindeer that had a name. One that trusted him enough to take salt from his hand. Any person from the civilized world would feel rage in this moment. The urge to grab a gun, rush outside, wipe out the entire pack, to take revenge, to destroy the pests. But there is no hatred in Nylték's soul. There is pain. There is fear. But there is no blind fury demanding revenge. Because Nylték is Chukchi. And for the Chukchi, the wolf is not just an animal. And certainly not a pest. The wolf is the master. In the Chukchi language, there are many words for wolf. But at night, in the tundra, they never say them out loud. They fear calling misfortune upon themselves. They fear drawing his attention. Instead, they speak in metaphors, with a respect bordering on sacred awe. The one who is in the tundra, the gray one, the long-tailed, the older brother, the one who walks behind the herd. The wolf is the spirit of the tundra, made flesh and blood. He was here thousands of years before the first human domesticated the first reindeer. He is the perfect predator, shaped by this land itself. Strong, intelligent, incredibly resilient. He knows the tundra better than any human ever could. The Chukchi do not wage war against the tundra. They live inside it. And that means they must live alongside its master. Nylték remembers his grandfather's words, spoken long ago by the fire. The old man smoked his pipe, releasing rings of bluish smoke. His eyes that had seen so much death, staring somewhere beyond the flames. "We are guests here, grandson," the old man said. "We came to the wolf's land with our herds. We take his prey. We disturb his peace. We and the wolves are brothers. We share the same blood. We are both herders. We herd domesticated reindeer. He herds the wild ones. Our paths cross because we share the same land and the same food. This is not a war of extermination. It is an eternal rivalry between two equal predators." This philosophy is not just beautiful words. It is the foundation of an entire people's survival. It created a complex system of ethical rules and taboos that govern the relationship between human and wolf. To break these rules is to break the balance of the world, to invite the anger of the spirits. Rule 1. You may kill a wolf in battle. That is fair. If a wolf attacks your herd, if it threatens your life, you have the right to defend yourself. You may take a spear, a lasso, a rifle. You may kill him. There is no sin in this. This is the law of the tundra. The strong survive, the weak die. If you win in an honest fight, the spirits will not condemn you. You were protecting what was yours. Rule 2. You must never kill a wolf for fun or out of pride. To kill a wolf just because you can, because you have a snowmobile and a scope, is a grave crime. It is an insult to the master. The Chukchi believe the punishment for such a killing is terrible. Luck will turn away from the hunter. His herd will begin to sicken. His children may die. The spirits of the tundra do not forgive disrespect. And there is a third rule, the strictest, the most sacred taboo of all. You must never touch wolf pups. Wolf pups are the master's children. The grandfather's voice would grow low and severe when he spoke of this. If you find a den in spring, walk past it. Pretend you didn't see it. Do not touch them. If you kill a wolf cub, you kill your own child. The tundra will take your son or daughter in payment for innocent blood. Nylték knows the stories of those who broke this taboo, of people who raided dens for pelts or killed wolf pups out of cruelty. Their fates were terrible. Their families died out. Misfortune followed them relentlessly. They themselves went mad or vanished forever into the white silence. These rules aren't just superstition. They are deep ecological wisdom, forged through thousands of years of observation. The wolf is not the enemy of the reindeer. He is its necessary companion. The wolf is the sanitation worker of the tundra. He kills the weak first, the sick, the old. He prevents overpopulation. He stops epidemics. Without wolves, wild reindeer herds would degenerate, eat all the lichen, and then starve to death. The wolf is essential to the health of the tundra itself. And the Chukchi understand this. They are willing to pay their tribute to the master. They know that every year the wolves will take part of their herd. 10, 20, maybe 50 reindeer. It's inevitable. It's a tax for living in this harsh land. When a wolf takes a reindeer, the grandfather taught, don't curse him. Thank him for taking the reindeer, and not you. Thank him for leaving you the rest. That is his share. He also has a family to feed. Now, sitting inside the yaranga and listening to the wolves feeding on the flesh of his reindeer, Nylték feels humility before this ancient law. He has paid the tribute. He gave up a part to preserve the whole. He understands them. He respects their strength and their right to live. He fears them to the point his knees tremble. They are enemies, but they are also brothers, two sides of the same coin, two faces of the same harsh reality, where there is no room for mercy, but there is room for respect. And on this night, under the endless polar sky, there are no guilty and no innocent. There are only those who will survive, and those who will become food, so that life in the tundra can continue. The wolves are full now. They won't go far. They will lie down to sleep right here, near the remains of their prey. And that means Nylték has a chance he has no right to waste, a chance to do what seems impossible in a situation like this. He needs to sleep, not truly, not deeply, but the way people sleep in the tundra, when death lies 100 meters away, curled up on the snow. He must use the sleeping technique that saved his ancestors, the technique of napping on a powder keg. The wolves are full. Out there, 100 meters from the yaranga, lie 12 perfect killing machines, digesting the meat of his reindeer. Right now, they are lazy, calm. This is the window of opportunity. Maybe an hour, maybe two. Nylték knows one thing. If he doesn't sleep now, he will die. Not from fangs, from exhaustion. He's been on his feet for over 30 hours. He built a yaranga in 40-degree frost. He survived multiple adrenaline spikes. His energy reserves are empty. If he doesn't let his brain reboot, then in a couple of hours, when the wolves get hungry again, he'll be useless. His reaction time will slow. His thoughts will blur. He'll simply freeze, standing up. But how do you fall asleep when your brain is screaming, "Don't close your eyes. They're out there. They're waiting"? This is the tundra's cruelest torture. Torture by waiting, multiplied by extreme exhaustion. Nylték must use the technique herders have relied on for thousands of years. This is not sleep as we understand it, not sweet oblivion in a warm bed. This is vigilant drowsiness, sleep on a powder keg with a lit fuse. Rule 1. Position. Nylték does not lie down. To lie down is to relax every muscle, to sink into deep, slow sleep, the kind you can't snap out of instantly. He stays sitting, his back pressed against the cold, frozen wall of the yaranga. His legs are stretched toward the faintly glowing embers. It's uncomfortable. His back stiffens. His neck aches. But this discomfort is his anchor. It keeps him floating on the surface of consciousness. Rule 2. The weapon. His spear lies across his knees. His hands rest on the shaft. This isn't just readiness for combat. It's an alarm. If he falls too deeply asleep, his muscles will relax, his hands will slip, and the spear will hit the ground, or his legs. That sound, that jolt, will wake him. Rule 3. The split brain. Modern science calls this unihemispheric sleep or microsleep. It's an ability people of civilization have almost lost, but one that survives among those who live in the wild. Nylték closes his eyes. This is the scariest moment. To voluntarily blind yourself when the enemy is nearby. The darkness behind his eyelids feels alive. Phantom images of wolf faces flash through it. His body begins to fall into a black pit of exhaustion. Muscles grow heavy, breathing slows. Half of his brain shuts down, entering emergency repair mode. But the other half stays on guard. It turns into one massive radar, plugged directly into his ears. In this state, his hearing sharpens to the edge of hallucination. Nylték doesn't just hear sounds, he hears the structure of silence. A rustle. His body jolts with electricity. Eyes fly open, heart leaps into his throat. Fingers clamp around the spear until it hurts. What was that? A step? He doesn't breathe. He listens. Tongue is sleeping. The reindeer are calm. It was just the wind blowing snow off the roof of the Uranga, or a chunk of ice cracking somewhere a kilometer away. False alarm. The adrenaline injected into his blood slowly dissolves, leaving behind an even deeper, nauseating weakness. He closes his eyes again. It starts all over, falling into darkness, deeper this time. Fragments of dreams appear, a warm tent, the smell of boiled meat, his sister's laughter. Crack! A branch snaps in the fire. Jolt, awakening, panic, scanning, realization of safety, trying to calm his heart. This is not rest. This is Chinese water torture. Only instead of drops, it's the sounds of the tundra. Every 5 to 10 minutes, fear rips him out of sleep. He balances on a razor-thin line between reality and nightmare. He starts to imagine the hides of the Uranga moving, that someone is breathing in the corner. The boundaries of the world blur. His body demands warmth. The embers are almost dead. The temperature inside is falling. Cold begins to creep under his kuchlianka, biting at his toes. He starts to shiver. The shivering is the body's attempt to warm itself, but it also makes sleep impossible. He is forced to fight on two fronts, against the external enemy and against his own body, which is trying to betray him, either by shutting down too deeply or freezing him alive. An hour passes, maybe an hour and a half. In this state, time isn't linear. It stretches into eternity, then collapses into a single point. Nylték is more exhausted by this torture than if he had been hauling stones. But he knows, these scraps of sleep, these miserable crumbs of rest, are his fuel. He's recharging his battery by 10% just to survive a few more hours. He closes his eyes again, his eyelids, crusted with frost, part with effort. He falls. This time, deep. Exhaustion wins. Sleep turns thick, heavy, sticky. The guard inside his brain begins to give way. The break is over. They're awake, and now they're not hungry. Now they're curious. Now they're coming to inspect the strange two-legged creature who locked himself inside a snow mound. They don't wait. The drowsy haze is ripped from Nylték instantly, as if icy water were thrown in his face. Adrenaline floods his head, clearing his mind, sharpening his senses to the limit. There's no time to think. Every second of hesitation is a lost reindeer. Panic that can scatter the herd across the tundra, and then he'll lose everything. Nylték grabs the spear in his right hand, the axe in his left. He doesn't feel the weight of the weapons, doesn't feel the pain in his stiff muscles. He's a spring, compressed all night, now snapping straight. He tears the hide curtain aside and bursts outside. The cold hits his face like a physical blow. -45 after the relative warmth of the Uranga burns his lungs. The wind hurls needles of snow into his eyes. The world turns into a black and white chaos of sound and motion. He sees them. The pack has split. Most of the wolves circle the herd, maintaining panic, not letting the reindeer settle. But one, a large, seasoned male, possibly the alpha, breaks away. He's attacking the edge of the herd, where young reindeer and pregnant females are pressed together. The easiest prey. Tongue, the loyal dog, tries to stop him. He lunges at the wolf, barking, snapping at empty air. But the wolf is twice his size. He ignores Tongue, shrugs him off like an annoying fly, and keeps closing in. One more second, and he'll clamp onto a throat. Nylték doesn't think. He acts on pure instinct, hammered into him by generations of hunter ancestors. He charges forward, not toward the herd, but straight across the wolf's path. He runs through deep snow, sinking to his knees, but doesn't notice. He screams, not words, a wild, guttural battle cry meant to frighten, to stun. Ara! Hey! Hey! The wolf hears him, stops, turns his massive head. Yellow eyes glow in the darkness, reflecting starlight. He sees a human running straight at him. This is the critical moment, the moment of truth. Who will flinch first? The wolf isn't used to prey charging at him. It breaks his pattern. He bares his white fangs, lets out a low, threatening growl. He's ready to fight. Nylték does not stop. He knows, if he hesitates now, if he shows even a shadow of doubt, the wolf will attack. And then there's no chance. 5 meters, 1 leap. Nylték stops abruptly, bracing his feet in the snow. He doesn't attack. He takes a defensive stance. The spear thrusts forward, its tip aimed at the wolf's chest. The axe rises overhead, ready to strike. He makes himself bigger, arms wide, chest expanded. He stands firm, like a rock. His eyes lock onto the wolf's. He does not blink. He broadcasts a single message, pouring into it all his will, all his fear, all his fury. Try it. I'll die, but I'll take you with me. Time freezes. These few seconds stretch into eternity. Man and beast stand face to face, two predators of the tundra. Around them, the blizzard rages, reindeer scream, the dog barks. But for them, only this eye contact exists, a duel of wills. The wolf evaluates. He sees the sharp spear tip, the glint of the axe. He sees a human who doesn't smell like fear, but like resolve and aggression. He calculates the risk. Attack? He could be wounded. A wound is death. Is this reindeer worth it? The wolf snorts, a sound of irritation and disdain. Slowly, very slowly, never breaking eye contact, he takes a step back. Then another. He doesn't run. He retreats. With dignity. He acknowledges strength. He turns and trots calmly into the darkness, toward the rest of the pack. Nylték does not lower the spear. He does not move. He watches the gray shadow dissolve into the night. He won this clash, but the war is not over. This wasn't a real attack. It was a test, a probe. They were checking his reaction, his readiness to defend the herd. He passed, but they're not leaving. They understand that taking prey by force would be difficult and dangerous, but they're in no hurry. They have time. They have patience. They switch to Plan B, a siege. They'll sit here in plain sight and wait. Wait for the cold to do its work. Wait for exhaustion to break the human. Wait for a mistake. Nylték looks at them, and they look back at him, and he realizes, this night just got longer, and now he can't return to the warmth of the Uranga. He must stay here in the open frost, face to face with the enemy. The psychological duel moves to a new level, and the stakes have just hit maximum. The adrenaline of the clash fades, and in its place comes cold. Not just the cold of the air, but the icy cold of realization. Nylték stands with the spear in his hands, victor of the first skirmish. But he knows, this was a Pyrrhic victory. He can't stand here forever. At -45, the cold is already biting through his double kuchlianka. In an hour, his muscles will stiffen. His reactions will slow. He'll freeze to death protecting the herd. And the wolves, they aren't cold. Their fur was made for this weather. They can sit here for hours, days. They're fed. They finished that first reindeer. They're patient, and they know time is on their side. This is a siege, and the besieged is running out of resources. Nylték looks at the alpha. He sits motionless, like a statue carved from gray stone. Only the steam of his breath and the glint of his eyes prove he's alive. There's no rage in that stare, only calm, terrifying confidence. The confidence of the one in control. He knows that sooner or later the human will make a mistake, fall asleep, freeze, or the herd will panic again, and then they'll take what's theirs. One thought pounds in Nylték's head. They won't leave, not like this. They came for prey, and they won't leave this place with empty paws. And then Nylték makes a decision, the hardest decision of his life. A decision that goes against the instinct of ownership, against the instinct of a protector. If he wants to save the herd, he has to give something up. If he wants to survive, he has to pay a tribute. This isn't weakness, it's ancient wisdom passed down by the elders. When the master of the tundra comes to your doorstep, they said, don't send him away with empty hands. Share your meal, and he won't touch you. This is a pact, a deal with the devil of the frozen wilderness. Nylték slowly backs away, never turning his back, moving toward the Uranga. Tongue greets him with a joyful yelp, but Nylték hushes him. This is no time for games. He slips inside the Uranga. It's still warm in here. It smells of smoke and life. Now that warmth feels fragile, temporary. He walks to a supply bag. Inside lies a large piece of reindeer, a hind leg he saved for the darkest day. 10 kilograms of rich, fatty meat, a week's worth of energy. He takes it. The meat is heavy, frozen solid. He looks at it. This is his food, his family's survival. Giving it away means hunger, but if he doesn't give it away, the wolves will take 10 living reindeer. The choice is obvious, and that doesn't make it any easier. Nylték grips the meat in his left hand, the spear in his right, and steps back outside, into the frozen hell. The wolves are still there. They saw him leave. They see him return. They see what he's carrying. Their ears rise. They smell it. Even frozen, meat smells like blood. Nylték takes a deep breath, burning his lungs with icy air, and starts walking. Not toward the herd, not toward the Uranga, straight toward the wolves. These are the longest 100 meters of his life. Every step is a struggle. His legs sink into the snow. His heart pounds against his ribs. Every instinct screams, "Stop! You're walking to your death! They'll tear you apart!" But he walks, alone. A small human with a piece of meat, walking toward a pack of killers. He stops about 30 meters away. That's the boundary. Beyond it, their territory. The alpha slowly rises to his feet. Up close, he's even bigger. A massive beast with a broad chest and scars across his muzzle. His hackles lift. He looks at Nylték. There's no fear in his eyes, only cold calculation. The rest of the pack stands as well, tense, ready, waiting for the signal. Nylték looks straight into the alpha's eyes. In that moment, something strange happens. A silent, wordless conversation. A dialogue between two predators who understand the language of strength and necessity. "I see you, master," Nylték's gaze says. "I respect your power. You came for your share. I can't give you my herd, but I don't want war. Take this. This is my tribute. Take it and leave in peace." Nylték slowly, without sudden movement, drops to one knee. He places the meat on the snow in front of him. Is this submission? No, it's an offering, a ritual. He sets the meat down and slowly straightens. He doesn't look away. He doesn't turn his back. He begins to retreat, step by step, backing toward the Uranga, spear held ready but not threatening. The alpha stands still. He looks from the man to the meat. He weighs the options. 10 kilograms of meat. No fight. No risk of injury. Right now. Or a long siege. A dangerous standoff with an armed human and a dog for the chance of maybe killing another reindeer. The wolf is a pragmatist. The wolf can count. Nylték is already 50 meters away, almost back at the Uranga. Then the alpha moves. He doesn't charge the human. He walks, slowly, calmly, to the meat. Sniffs it. The pack watches every step. The alpha grips the meat in his jaws as easily as if it were a feather. He lifts his head and looks at Nylték one last time. There's no gratitude in that gaze, only acceptance of the deal. The contract is sealed. The alpha turns and trots away into the tundra, carrying his payment. The pack follows without a sound. One by one, gray shadows dissolve into the polar night. They're leaving. Nylték is alive. The herd is safe. He paid a high price. He gave up his food, but he bought his life. And he bought this night. The deal with the tundra's devil is done, and both sides kept their word. In the tundra, time flows differently. There are no hours, no minutes, only darkness and light. And this night felt longer than Nylték's entire life before it. He doesn't know when he truly fell asleep. After the wolves left, he sat by the entrance for a long time, spear in hand, listening to every sound. Adrenaline slowly drained from his blood, leaving crushing heaviness behind. He fought sleep using the old technique, but eventually, exhaustion won. He passed out sitting up, leaning against the wall. He wasn't awakened by danger. He was awakened by its absence, and by light. Nylték opened his eyes. Inside the Uranga, it was quiet and cool. The fire had long gone out. A faint gray light seeped through the entrance. Morning. He's alive. Slowly, stiffly, he stood up. Every muscle ached. His body felt chujim, wooden, chujdom. Tongue woke at his feet, stretched, wagged his tail. Nylték pulled aside the hide curtain and stepped outside. The cold was still brutal, -40 at least. But in daylight, it felt less hostile. The air was crystal clear, ringing. You could drink it like ice water. He looked first to where the wolves had sat during the night. The rise was empty. Only tracks in the snow remained, leading north, fading into the gray horizon. They were gone. Night ghosts, dissolved by daylight. He turned to the herd. The reindeer stood close together, calmly pawing through snow for lichen. Steam rose from their backs. They survived. He walked among them, counting. This wasn't just math, it was a count of his future. 400, 410, 420. He scanned familiar markings, horn shapes. 426. One was missing. The young bull with the white patch on his side. The one whose death he heard in the night. One loss. Out of 427. It was a miracle. He could have lost 10, half the herd, or his own life. But he lost only one reindeer, and a piece of meat. That was the price of the night, the price of life. And it was fair. He walked to the kill site. Only bones and scraps of hide remained. The wolves took everything. The tundra wastes nothing. Nylték stood there. No anger, no regret, only overwhelming relief. And gratitude. He removed his mitten, not feeling the cold, and touched the amulet on his chest. The wolf's fang. Thank you, he whispered into the empty tundra. To those who went north. Thank you for taking only what you needed. Thank you for keeping your word. He knew this wouldn't be their last meeting. Winter is long. The wolves would return, or others would come. But now he knew what to do. He was no longer just a boy guarding reindeer. That night, in the darkness, staring into the alpha's eyes, he passed his initiation. He survived. He protected what was his. He made a deal with the master. He became a true herder. Nylték inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with icy air. He felt empty, drained to the core, and at the same time, incredibly calm and strong. He turned toward the Uranga. Time to light the fire. Brew tea. Eat. Life went on. A new day. A new migration. New pastures. The tundra gives no time for rest, but it gives chances to those who know how to listen. Nylték patted tongue on the shaggy head. The dog licked his hand with a warm tongue. "Let's go, brother," Nylték said. "We still have a long road ahead." They walked back toward the Uranga, leaving tracks in the untouched snow of a new day. A day they had earned. A week later, Nylték returned to the family camp. He brought back 426 reindeer. His father met him in silence. He looked long at his son, the herd, the exhausted dog. Then he placed a heavy hand on Nylték's shoulder and nodded. In the tundra, that's the highest praise. That night, Nylték left as a boy. He returned as a man. He passed his test. The tundra accepted him. He lived a long life. For 40 years, he led herds across these endless snows. He married, raised 4 children. His daughter became a respected shaman. They say she inherited her father's gift of speaking with spirits. Nylték met wolves hundreds of times after that. He lost reindeer in blizzards, nearly drowned in icy rivers, starved. But he never again felt the paralyzing terror of that first night. He knew the rules. He knew that the master of the tundra can be bargained with, if you have the courage to look him in the eyes and the wisdom to pay the tribute. Today, people like Nylték are almost gone. Civilization reached the tundra. Snowmobiles replaced sleds. Helicopters replaced intuition. Scoped rifles replaced spears. Young Chukchi moved to cities, work in offices and stores, forget the language of their ancestors. Reindeer herding becomes a business, not a way of life. We built warm houses, surrounded ourselves with safety. We defeated cold, hunger, darkness. And that's good. That's progress. But we lost something important. We lost our connection to the ancient, wild world we all came from. We forgot how to listen to silence. We forgot real fear, the kind that sharpens the senses and makes life vivid. We forgot that humans are not kings of nature. We are just one species among others, and to survive, we must respect its laws. Nylték's story is more than survival. It's a reminder of who we once were, and of the strength of spirit still sleeping inside each of us, buried under layers of comfort. Many years later, old Nylték lies in his Uranga. Outside, the wind howls again. Somewhere in the darkness, wolves call to each other. But his heart beats steadily. His hand rests calmly on the blanket, not on a spear. He closes his eyes and sleeps. Not the tense sleep on a powder keg, but the deep, peaceful sleep of a man who knows he is home. And in this home, everything is as it should be. The tundra sleeps, and its herder sleeps with it. The fire in the Uranga has burned out, and our story has come to an end. But the world is full of secrets waiting their time. If you're ready to go again where the comfort zone ends, subscribe to the channel. We're just beginning our journey into the dark.